What's going on, ladies and gents, boys and girls, guardians of all ages? Joker back again, once again. Barring any sudden revelations or quests, I wanted to go ahead and compile the remainder of my thoughts on Season of the Undying, and talk about a handful of things that didn't necessarily have enough content to justify their own video. And it is kind of sad because a lot of the stuff is more positive stuff. So, without further ado, let's just go ahead and dive right in. Two of the best changes to come with Shadowkeep and Season of the Undying that we really haven't had time to talk about and don't really have enough content, at least in a discussion format, to really justify their own videos is the Ordeal Nightfalls and Solo Competitive. Now, your mileage will vary when it comes to the Ordeal Nightfalls. This is sort of the law of diminishing returns when it comes to any PvE content. So with Shadowkeep, as we all know, Bungie introduced a new armor system, Armor 2.0. And one of the primary ways that Bungie introduced to farm the materials to upgrade this new armor and to get new exotics was the Ordeal Nightfalls, an activity that you could now farm over and over and over and over again and get rewards. And this is cool. This is an amazing change. This is something that needed to happen with Destiny 1. Hey, mark your calendars, finally something Destiny 2 has done better than Destiny 1. There is, of course, a but. Once you have your exotics, and once your inventory is full of upgrade materials, the necessity of doing this activity has diminished. Because the unfortunate reality is, Destiny is built in a way where much of the content is unsustainable past any given release. And that doesn't diminish, by the way, BTW, because I know somebody's gonna be like, I thought you liked this, but you're bitching. No. That does not diminish how great the Ordeal Nightfall system is. Destiny, in fact, needs more difficulty sliders for the raids, for the general strikes, for story missions, for dungeons, and for quests. And increasing the difficulty sliders in these different activities should pay out more and better rewards. I mean, imagine a hard mode raid. Remember when they had hard mode raids? In this example, maybe you don't separate the loot pool, like the raids in Destiny 1 did. What you do, however, is in the hard mode raid, you give better statted armor. So in the normal mode of the raid, I could potentially have armor that drops between 49 base stats and 59 or 60 base stats. Then in the hard mode version of the raid, this armor can drop at 60 base stats to 70 or 80, whatever the cap is. On top of that, it also has a chance of dropping fully masterworked. I think that would be a reward system that Bungie wouldn't actually have to do all that much to implement, and it would incentivize players to play harder activities. And again, I use the raid as an example, but you can really do this with all of the activities in Destiny. And while this doesn't fix the law of diminishing returns, I don't think anything ever will, giving players more options with how they engage with content and giving them a reason to continue engaging with that content is never a bad idea. So credit where credit is due. The Ordeal Nightfall system is fucking amazing, and I'd love to see it expanded. The next system that Bungie really knocked out of the park is the solo competitive matchmaking. Now, competitive at this point is sort of an oxymoron, because every playlist in Destiny, with the exception of Classic Mix, is matched based on true skill. Technically speaking, making them all competitive. And I mean, last season, Clash and Control were both in the competitive playlist. I'm not saying you should be able to earn glory points in every playlist because every playlist is now match made by true skill outside of Classic Mix. I'm just saying if every playlist is going to be matched like the competitive playlist, then maybe they should be treated like, I don't know, competitive playlist. But hey, fucking details, and I digress. Solo competitive is a great playlist because it allows you to go in and play the competitive mode without having a team. I mean, obviously, right? It's on the fucking label. And I know it's kind of silly to bring it up like that, but think about how important that simplicity is, and how it now opens the competitive playlist up to a lot of people who may not have played it because they didn't have a team. And like with difficulty sliders in more activities, I would like to see this implemented in more activities, like, I don't know, Iron Banner? And while they're at it, maybe we could get a couple more game type options that fall into the competitive playlist, like, I don't know, things that people have been asking for since Destiny released, like, I don't know, competitive 3v3 Clash or competitive 3v3 Control. You give each one of these game types their own competitive playlist, and then you give them a solo queue hopper. That would be fucking amazing. I'm just throwing that out there for you, Bungie, if you're listening, because, well, you said you were gonna focus more on PvP this season, and let's be real, let's be honest, that didn't happen. In fact, competitive and PvP is probably in the worst place it's ever been since Destiny 2 released and you fixed Year 1. In fact, the only redeeming highlight has been this solo queue option for competitive, and some overtures that Trials of Osiris or Trials of the Nine may eventually one day come back if we're all good little guardians. But moving forward. So, I'm not necessarily sure if I would qualify the Battle Pass as a good thing, because conceptually, I hate it. But if we're being intellectually honest, there is a huge difference between not liking something conceptually and that thing being bad or poorly implemented. It's almost like taking a nuanced approach. And I know, nuance? What? Who gives a fuck about that outdated concept? But back to the subject at hand. The Battle Pass wasn't as offensive as everybody thought it was going to be, and reaching level 100 wasn't that much of a grind, and it very well could have been. Let's hope it stays this way. Granted, I would prefer exotics drop in the game, I would prefer things to chase after, but if we have to have a Battle Pass, this is most definitely not the worst iteration it could have been. So, there you go. As for everything else, well, Season of the Undying was an overall disappointment, full of lackluster and reskinned content, a horde mode with no depth, and a story that crescendoed into nothing more than a wet fart. I want to have hope that Season of the Dawn will be better. I want to say that, well, you know, Season of the Undying was bad because it was developed alongside Shadowkeep, and Shadowkeep offered, well, a mixed bag. But this was Bungie's chance to sell us all on the Season Pass, and for a lot of people, I don't think they did. Don't get me wrong. I'm gonna get the next DLC. I paid for the collector's edition, so I already own it. And hey, fixing the timeline sounds really fucking cool. But so did stopping the Vex from the Black Garden invading the moon. So did building a portal so that we could face the Undying Mind. All of these ideas were really cool, but the implementation left a lot to be desired. And let's face it, let's set expectations here and now. Bungie is making the Season Pass this time around by themselves. I've said this before, I'll say it again. Previously, they had the help of High Moon Studios and Vicarious Visions, and last year's Season Pass was pretty sparse on content. Now, after separating from Activision, Bungie no longer has that help. So I think Season of the Undying is a pretty good indicator of how much content is going to be on the Season Pass per DLC. And realistically, there wasn't a lot of new content. There was a lot of reskinned content, there was a lot of rearranged content, but there wasn't a lot of new content. Something else I've also said before, and I'll reiterate here, small DLCs don't have to be bad. Hell, sometimes less is more. Let me put it to you this way. What would you rather have? Would you rather have one really cool, interesting, fun exotic, or 5 meh exotics that you'll collect and they'll be in your collection and you'll try them out once or twice, but that's about it? I can only speak for myself, but if given the choice, I'm gonna go with the one really cool one instead of the 5 mediocre ones. I think most people would. Same goes with any DLC or any release. I think most people would rather a handful of missions or one really great concentrated experience or new event, new horde mode or whatever, instead of a really bloated and yet somehow scant experience that's stretched out over 3 months and ultimately isn't all that satisfying. But hey, those are just my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. And like always, stay frosty. Also, here's some little end of the video shilling. So, I have a Patreon, and with all this COPPA YouTube BS happening, if you wanted a way to support the channel, there is that option. But I'm not necessarily happy with it. Basically, all but 2 tiers, the final 2, are, hey, thanks for supporting the channel. And I want to change that. I want my Patreon to be more rewarding. So here I am asking you wonderful ladies and gents, boys and girls, guardians of all ages, what would you want to see on my Patreon? Let me know in the comments below. And once again, like always, stay frosty. Or don't. It's cold outside, so maybe stay warm. Don't get sick. Yeah. Stay warm, but stay frosty as in, like, keep your head on a swivel, you know? Like, you get what I mean.